Oh man, I love Marvel movies. The movies of the MCU are probably the best franchise of all time. For those who don't know what this one marvelous scene thing is that's been going around, Nando V Movies assembled a team of YouTube personalities to discuss their favorite scenes from the MCU, and since I just broke 30 subscribers, you can bet he invited me right away. Just kidding, I'm actually not doing homework to join in the fun, because just like Marvel movies, making video essays are fun. Now, I spent quite a while trying to think of what my favorite scene from the MCU is, and I've decided that it's probably, and drumroll please, the Jolly Ranchers scene from Batman vs. Superman. Ha! I'm just kidding. Screw that movie. Alright guys, I promise I won't subvert any more expectations for the rest of the video. But on the topic of getting expectations subverted, do you know what movie entirely blew me away? Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Now, to fully understand why I enjoy this movie so much, and why it caught me off guard, you have to go back in time 5 years, to 2014, back when the MCU wasn't actually very good. Don't get me wrong, all the Marvel movies are good, but before 2014, the only ones that really stood out as being incredible were Iron Man 1 and Avengers 1. Pretty much the rule was, if the movie didn't have Iron Man in it, you waited for it to come out on DVD. And it's weird to think about how much it has changed since 2014. Now, movies like Captain Marvel and Black Panther, which are superheroes barely anyone even knows, can make more money than some of the more popular characters like Spider-Man and Venom, even when those movies are released in months like March. March is like the worst month out of the whole 12, so I honestly have to admit that I had really low expectations for this movie. I wasn't a huge fan of the first Captain America, I knew Bucky was the Winter Soldier, and the trailers really did not help. I didn't even actually watch the movie until the 4th of July, when it came out to the Dollar Theater. And even then, really the only reason I was watching it was because it had the word America in the title, and it was the 4th of July. Anyways, for those of you who have seen the movie, you probably know I can talk about any scene from the movie and discuss how great it was that the Russos made Captain America, who was probably the lamest Avenger to get his own movie at the time,
It seems to run on some form of electricity.
into a butt-whooping renegade. But the scene that has always stuck with me, and massive spoilers if you haven't seen the movie, is Zola's return. This moment happens about halfway through the film, towards the end of the second act of the film. The whole movie so far has been spent building up tension and confusion. The movie opens showing us how Cap has been struggling to find his place in the modern world. Everyone around him acts strange. Fury is acting weird, Peggy has dementia, Romanoff is doing dirty work behind his back. For Steve, nothing seems right. All of this gets dialed up to 11 when Fury tries to encrypt some files Black Widow stole and ends up getting gunned down by the Winter Soldier right in his apartment. Anyone who saw this movie in the theaters legitimately thought Fury was dead at this point. And if Sam Jackson dies in the movie, that usually means that a bunch more people will die later. If you don't believe me, watch Infinity War and Revenge of the Sith. Anyway, Cap and B-Dub are able to decrypt some of the files, and it leads them to an old S.H.I.E.L.D. bunker. And my favorite scene in the whole movie. Turns out the bunker is Cap's old training ground from the first movie. This is the only time Captain America really feels like he's home in the movie. He has fond memories of the time he spent at this camp in the first Captain America movie. As they venture inside, they learn that the bunker is where S.H.I.E.L.D. started, and we get this time to look at some of the protagonists of the first movie, like young Howard Stark and Peggy Carter. This builds the tension even more, as we the audience know the bunker must be the evil lair. But yet, everything we've been shown inside have been symbols of good in the Marvel Universe. Cap then finds an elevator that leads to something much darker. Under the bunker, we find this dusty old computer, which, in my mind, will always go down as the creepiest looking computer ever. This, again, feels like a dead end to the audience, as there is no way the bad guys would be using a computer from the 40s that probably couldn't even run Doom. That is, until we see a USB hooked up to it. Now, as a millennial, I see this and my mind automatically rejects this, as I know there is no reason that there should be a USB on that PC. It adds to the confusion as everything we've seen continues to feel wrong, in a disturbing way. The computer starts up and we hear an almost familiar voice.
Roger, Stephen.
And see this creepy pair of eyes on the PC. As the computer continues to speak, we slowly realize that it's Professor Arnim Zola from the first movie. First off, out of every villain to return in a movie, Zola is probably the most surprising. Just because he was such a lame B-grade villain sidekick in the first Captain America. He was just a short, fat dude. No one asked for more of him, and no one expected it. And yes, I know in the comics that he's a weird robot, but at this moment in time, generally comic book movies would ditch more supernatural and cosmic elements of characters to create a more realistic and less fun world. Having Zola be a short dude in the first Avenger was all the fan service we expected at the time. But what Zola reveals to us is the real crazy part. Zola tells Rogers that because of Operation Paperclip, which was a real thing, the US hired him after World War II, and since then, Hydra has been operating through S.H.I.E.L.D., causing terrorist attacks and murders the whole time. In this short moment, it ties almost all the previous movies together. It explains why Hydra tech was found on the helicarrier in Avengers. It explains why Tony was ambushed in Iron Man 1. It explains why the government was so anti-Iron Man in Iron Man 2. It explains why S.H.I.E.L.D. was so interested in Thor's arrival to Earth. It explains why S.H.I.E.L.D. was interested in having the Tesseract. And most importantly, it explains what the new helicarrier's mission is, solving the conflict of the movie. Also, I really don't want to go all Alex Jones on you guys, but it's creepy to think about how possible all of this could be. Yes, it's true that Operation Paperclip hired Nazi scientists to work for the US. And yes, it's also true that some of those Nazi scientists worked on MK Ultra, which if you don't know what that is, you should really look it up, because it is very disturbing and your grandpa's taxes paid for it. The truth is that we live in a world where we trust our leaders a little bit too much, without question. Honestly, how many of you can say you really know your state representative, or even who he/she is? I mean, for crying out loud, Pete Buttigieg is running for president, and I only live like 20 minutes away from him, and yet I know nothing about him. He honestly could be working for Hydra. I wouldn't know. I mean, how would I? This whole sequence of confusion followed by disappointment perfectly represents the modern era and what Steve Rogers is struggling with. Zola describes this by saying when you cut off one head of Hydra, two more take its place. I love this because it takes the campy name of the bad guy's organization in the first movie and gives it real meaning. When I saw this, my jaw literally dropped, and I can probably count on one hand how many times that's happened to me. So the fact that this movie got me to do it, yeah, that's pretty impressive. The fact that it took so much and tied it all together without even using a single end credit scene is awesome. There's also the fact that it took something we earlier saw as a symbol of good, which is S.H.I.E.L.D., and twisted it into Nazis. The one thing everyone universally agrees on is the worst and most evil organization in history. As soon as Zola is done with his speech, a missile is sent from S.H.I.E.L.D. that blows up the entire building, destroying the only place Captain America feels at home. Captain America has symbolically lost one of the last things tying him to his previous life, and simultaneously learned that his sacrifice from the first movie was entirely wasted. This perfectly sets the stage for the final act of the film. In conclusion, Winter Soldier is one of my favorite Marvel movies, and since watching that one, I've made sure to see every Marvel movie opening weekend. It's also one of the more or less seen Marvel movies, which is really sad. A lot of times when someone tells me they don't like the Marvel movies because they're too formulaic, I always ask them if they've seen The Winter Soldier, and 100% of the people I've talked to have said no. So if you haven't seen The Winter Soldier yet, please go out and watch it. It really is a marvelous movie with a super marvelous plot twist that I just kind of spoiled. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm also super thankful for Nando V Movies for giving me the opportunity to make this video. If you guys really like cinematic universes, I have a bunch of Godzilla videos coming up on my channel here pretty soon. So if you want to see those, make sure to subscribe. Thank you so much. If you leave a comment, I promise I'll respond to it. Bye.